there. Something I wanted to look up. I didn't want to write it on this one because I already had stuff wrote up here and I'd be lost it. So I put it on next Sunday's lesson because it's something I wanted to look up. And for all you people that's cold, it's hot up here. Y'all can move up this way if you're too cold because I'm about to burn up standing up here. You might ought to come up here and stand beside me. It's pretty warm up here today. Lord bless you. I admit it's cold outside, but it's not cold in here. This morning's lesson, we're continuing in the book of John, and this morning we're going to be talking about Jesus the Good Shepherd. Jesus Christ the Good Shepherd leads and provides for us. Now, it's not necessarily a compliment to us as Christian people that we are referred to as sheep, because if you look them up, they're not the smartest animals out there. And they need extra protection. Now, you can't hardly find stuff. I went online a little bit, and I don't even know what I did with it. I don't remember if I even printed it. My computer this morning didn't want me to print because it said I was too low on ink, but you see how much printing it did, and it didn't have any problems with whatever. But sheep are they just kind of wander around, and they don't do a whole lot of anything if they don't have a leader. And if you get right down to the nitty-gritty of it, that's kind of how we are. Without a leader, without a good leader, we just kind of wander around in the wilderness like the children of Israel did. We just kind of wander around and never seem to be able to get our act together, as people say. But be that as it may, because of Jesus Christ, we have the shepherd, we have the good shepherd who leads us, who provides for us, and who protects us. It says John 10 should not be taken as an isolated series of teachings because they represent an explanation of the events in John 9. I ran off some notes on John 10 if we get over there, out of this book long enough to get over there, which may or may not happen. But here Jesus in chapter 9 is where Jesus healed the blind man. But when the man visited Jewish authorities to affirm the miracle, I can't talk this morning, they cast him out of the synagogue. He goes in to testify to the fact that he had been healed of blindness. Now, thank you, God, I've never been blind. I've never had a whole lot of serious problems with vision. Had more problems than I realized since I didn't have problems anymore, but I've always been able to pick up a book and read. I may have had to have glasses on, but I could read. And anybody that knows me knows that I am passionate about reading. I meant to count it up because Tony likes to pick sometimes, and I meant to count it up to how many books I actually finished reading in 2025. Now, the last one I got out, I finished 2026, I think, on day 2. So I'm arguing with myself whether that goes to 2025 or 2026 that I read this book. But I read all the time, and unfortunately, I get started reading, and everything else comes to a halt, and I do nothing but read. And that's what I enjoy doing, and I ain't bothering anybody. But anyway, he was blind. He knew he was blind. But it was a miracle. Somebody healed him, and he was able to see. He could not go to the eye doctor and get these prescriptions for his vision like we do today. He was blind, and Jesus healed him, and he went to the synagogue. He went to the authorities to tell them he had been healed, and they kicked him out of the church. Can you imagine somebody standing up in church and thanking God for healing them, and we say, you need to leave. We don't want to hear it. You need to get out. Because church is where we come to share such things. Jesus finding the healed man afterwards affirmed the man to I might need glasses this morning, or I might need to slow down. My brain can't keep up with what I'm trying to say. Jesus, finding the healed man afterwards, affirmed the man himself had and received worship. When you will discover, what we will discover as we're going into chapter 10, is that Jesus had already modeled what he taught. He taught, but he also did what he taught. You know, we hear people say, you need to practice what you preach. Or if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. But if you're going to tell people this, then that's the way you need to live. And that's sort of what they're saying here. Jesus did what he told other people to do. He walked the walk, he talked the talk, he walked the walk, and he practiced what he preached. There you go, I got it all out that time. He had already modeled what he was teaching. He was a good shepherd, but the Pharisees are thieves. These were supposed to be some of the high, knowledgeable people. If you ever notice that sometimes the smarter people get, the dumber they are. It amazes me. People that's got PhDs and all these things, they're just as dumb as dirt. They don't know, they know this. And my grandchildren can do so much more with this than I can. And I mean, even the 7-year-old probably can do more with this than I can. Sometimes I think the only thing they're fit for is to throw out a window somewhere. But then every once in a while you need that little GPS on there, and it comes in pretty handy. But other times, sometimes it just needs to be gone. He knows, Jesus knows and is known by the sheep, but the Pharisees were out of touch with the people. If you look at people today, if you look at politicians, we ain't politicking, I don't know enough about politics to carry on an intelligent conversation, but if you look at politicians today, they're out of touch. A lot of them are out of touch with people. They're out of touch with the people who voted them into office. And sometimes I listen to people and I think, how in the world did anybody get you elected? I say that sometimes about people in the state of North Carolina. I don't know how you got elected. I'm still trying to figure it out, but that's neither here nor there. Everybody don't agree with me. But when the shepherd calls, those who follow will experience his provisions. When Jesus calls you, your answer needs to be what? Here I am, Lord. Who said that? Samuel? Was it Samuel that was talking to Eli? And that was the way he answered him. He'd keep running back and saying, I'm here. What do you want? And of course, Eli wasn't the one who called him. And I hope I got the right characters in the right place. But then he finally said, the next time you hear that, just kind of say, Lord, here I am and I'm listening. And sometimes that's the way we need to answer Jesus. Here I am, Lord, and I'm listening. But I tell people all the time, I've got the talking down pretty good. But the listening is still a problem. And I had somebody talk to me one day, and they said, you are the best listener. You just listen to everything. And I said, huh? Because I was over here solving another problem that somebody had already given to me to handle. I was already solving this problem when this person came in. So my brain was half listening to her and half over here doing that. And she said, you are such a good listener. You are such a good listener. You could just sit there and listen. I thought, if you just knew what half of my brain is doing while the other half is trying to figure out what you're trying to tell me, you would understand. I'm not necessarily listening. You know, hearing, I'll probably get this back, but hearing is just the movement of sound waves across the tympanic membrane. You hear a tree fall. You hear a bird sing. You hear a car backfire, and in society today, in certain places, you hear a car backfire, you are hidden by the time you figure out what's a car. But you hear all that. But if you're going to listen to somebody, you got to engage your mind in what they're trying to tell you. You can't just hear it, you got to listen. And when the Lord is talking to us, we need to learn to listen. Not just hear, but to listen to what the Lord is trying to say. Our golden text in John 10:11 says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep. Now, I tried to look up some stuff on sheep herding and shepherds, and things have changed since biblical days. And it was talking about, you know, shepherds used to take their flocks out, and they would just kind of let them, like free-range chickens. They could just wander wherever they wanted to go, and the shepherd just kept up with them. Well, now they don't necessarily do sheep like that, not in this country. They're penned in certain places, and they can graze. I almost said gaze. It's graze. They can graze in this area over here behind the fence, but they're not going to go but so far. And then it talked about the different kind of dogs that were out there, and I thought, well, this is not what I was looking for. I was looking for more the old-fashioned way of shepherding sheep. But it's biblical times. They talked about sometimes that there would be one son in, I'm going to call it a neighborhood, that might not be the right word, but everybody were shepherds and everybody had sheep, and they might take one son. They would get the sheep gathered together, and maybe one son would watch them at night so that they didn't all have to be up. And it basically said some things in one place where I read it said that they would put the sheep in one spot, and the shepherd would lay down across the gate so that the sheep couldn't come out without he knew they were coming out, and then he would put them back in the fold. Thank you. It says to ask the class, woo-hoo, have you ever received a phone call and known who was speaking to you before the person even announced himself? We do nowadays because everybody's got caller ID, because if you look at that phone and say, oh, I ain't got time to talk to that one today, and you just kind of put the phone and let it go to voicemail. Now, I had gotten up this morning and I got out of bed and went in the other room, and I was getting ready to I think I was letting the dog out. Of course, the coffee was making. I have my priorities. The coffee was making. Then I put the dog out, and just as the dog was getting out, I was getting the door closed, the phone rang, and I thought, who in the name of heavens would call me at 7:30 on Sunday morning? Anybody that knows me knows I'm busy. And I go over there, and I was already aggravated, and I picked the phone up, I looked at the caller ID, and it was Brian Keith. And I answered the phone with, what's wrong? You know, not hello. He's trying to say, Happy New Year, Mom, blah, 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 you know. And I'm saying, what's wrong? Why are you calling me at 7:30 in the morning? What is wrong with you? What's wrong? Something's got to be wrong. Well, he was driving down the road and just wanted somebody to talk to, and he called his mother. Thank you, Lord. I was glad he did. But you know, when people call you, sometimes you just get this eerie feeling. I honestly think sometimes I can tell when the phone rings. When it's one certain person, I know when the phone rings. I thought, oh, well, I just well go get a cup of coffee and sit down. I'm going to be here a while. Because it's going to be one of them long conversations, and I know that. I don't know why, because the phone rings like it does for anybody else. But I have laughed and had a good time, because if anybody tried to call me this, whatever day it was, I don't remember what day it was, one day this week, cable Spectrum went on a sabbatical, and everything in my house is run by computers and whatever. My phone is hooked to that, and the TV's hooked to that, and the internet is hooked to it, and so when it goes down, everything's gone down. So you have to go in there, you know, and unplug it and let it, what's that word, reboot, buff, something. You have to let it reboot. So I did that. And evidently, while I was doing that, I unplugged the phone system from the machine that runs the whole outfit. And I had this frantic phone call on the cell phone that said, well, I've been calling you for 24 hours. What is wrong with you? Where are you? I'm getting ready to call somebody, and I don't know why they thought you can call certain people and they'll know where I'm at. You know, if you don't know where I'm at, nobody else does either. But they were in a blind panic because they hadn't been able to reach me for 24 hours. Well, the day before, Robert had told me, Mama, I've called you 7 times today. Where have you been? You won't answer the telephone. My phone hadn't rung, son. I don't know who you're calling, but you're not calling your mother. Well, I got to thinking about it, and I picked up the phone, and I thought, well, that's because the phones are dead. I was already planning to go. I'd already looked up on the internet and priced another set of phones because I got them cordless phones, you know, all over the house. So I don't have to go very far to answer one. And I thought, oh, they didn't cost that much when I bought the ones I got, but Lord, look how long I've had them. And I then went in there and I thought, well, maybe it has something to do with whatever's in the back bedroom where all those wires come in at. Maybe I should go unplug it and plug it back up again. And I got in there and I thought, wonder what this cord goes to. There's my telephone wire hanging down there. I don't know why I unplugged it. I may not have unplugged it. It might have pulled loose. But I was out of commission, so nobody could find me. We were so dependent on stuff. You know, you got to get everything working, and it's got to be working right. You cannot have, as I had, half of my stuff was plugged in, but that vital little cord that looks like it's not imported at all, I just thought it was something I had left laying up there at some point in time, because when the what you call that box, the rotor goes out, I have one that I bought, and I can still go in there and plug all that stuff up until I get a new box from Spectrum. And I just figured it was one of the wires I'd left hanging, and that was the entire telephone system in that little board. Well, you know, when you get plugged into the Lord, if you stay plugged into Jesus, that's not a good analogy, but if you stay plugged into Jesus, then everything you need is right there. But when you are unplugged, when your prayer life is suffering, when you don't spend time in Bible study, when you don't spend time with the Lord, you become what I'm going to just refer to as unplugged. You lose track. You don't get the blessings. You don't recognize the Lord when He talks to you because you're out of contact with the Lord. But anyway, it says, have you ever answered the phone not knowing who was at the other end? Well, if you call my house now and I don't recognize your phone, your number, I don't say hello very often because they say that's what turns all those machines on when they get all this recording and stuff, and I'm getting paranoid, I guess. But I answer the phone and I say, well, good morning. And what can I do for you today? Well, the phone goes dead. And I just get a good laugh off of it, and I'm right there by myself, but I stand there and look at the phone, and I think, well, I guess I couldn't help you. You know, goody, goody gumdrops. I guess I can't help you. But I just can't get into conversations with people. But when it's answering the phone and it's not knowing who's on the other end, I've just got to, well, I just don't like to do that anymore. Because people have been tracking me down. Let's see, my car is 15 years old, soon be, well, it might be 16, because I think I bought it just as the season was changing. And they're still trying to give me an extended warranty on my car. I'm pretty sure if they found out how many miles I had put on that car in the last 15 years, they won't do any kind of extended warranty. It's an old car. But they tracked me down. So they called me one time, and they were saying, this is your last opportunity. And I let the man talk, and when he got through, I said, now, may I say something? He said, yes, ma'am. I said, when is my last opportunity going to be my last opportunity? It's been my last opportunity now for several years. When is my last opportunity so I can tell you for the last time, quit calling me. I don't want an extended warranty on my car. You know, I may go out there and it's fell apart when I get ready to leave, and I'll be thinking, oh, I wish I'd have done all that stuff, but it's too late now. But you need to know when you're talking to the Lord, you need to know who you're talking to. Now, I live by myself. So I talk to myself, and I don't have any problems admitting that. Some people don't want to admit they talk to themselves, but I hear some people talking to themselves, so I know that's what you do. But I use the dog as an excuse, and I pretend I'm talking to the dog. But I'm talking to myself sometimes because I have to work out a problem, and that's the only way I can work it out is to hear it. And I don't figure anybody else wants to listen to me working out my problems. But sometimes it can be nerve-wracking, and you can have all this anxiety induced about situations when people call you up and tell you stuff. I don't know why people want to call me up and tell me stuff that I can't do anything about. You know, if you live 100 miles down the road and you got a flat tire, there ain't no point in you calling me. I can't do a thing about it except tell you to call the garage, call whoever does flat tires. If you live next door to me, at this point in time in my life, I couldn't do you any good if you had a flat tire. I could take you to pick up somebody that could change the tire, but I can't change it. I have changed them before, but I don't think I could at this point in time. I probably couldn't jack a car up now. But in Jesus, we have found that familiar voice, and we know that the motives behind what he does and what he said are pure and trustworthy. Through him, there is an eternal joy and a sense of security that awaits us. Now, everybody sitting in here, whether or not you're going to admit it, I'm not going to ask you, but whether or not you admit it, at some point in time, you have been afraid of something, and you have felt real insecure. Now, y'all know I'm scared to death of a spider. If one comes up here right now, I'm gone. Y'all continue without me. But if one decides to come walking, now I got myself thinking about them. But if one decides to walk up here, y'all will be without me because I won't stay. And once you see one spider, where does your mind go? A bunch of spiders, and you are insecure, you're afraid in your own house, and every little shadow that goes across the floor, it can be the dog walking by and you saw just the last little part of his shadow, but it has become a spider. And you're anxious. Now, that's a silly thing, but it's easier to do it like that than to talk to people about their insecurities and their fears, because everybody fears something. I don't care how brave and tough you think you are, everybody sitting in here is afraid of something. I got up the other morning and I thought, Lord, look at there. As careful as I try to pretend I am, I had left the back door unlocked. The door wasn't locked, the deadbolt wasn't set. And I thought, well, thank you, Jesus. Woke up this morning. In the words of Sister Helen Mason from over at the Palmer Street Church years ago, thank you, Lord, you woke me up this morning. I'm still in this world and in my right mind. That particular day, I thought, well, you woke me up, Lord, this morning. I must have not been in my right mind last night, or I would check this door before I went to bed, because I did not deliberately leave my door open, and now I've gotten back into the habit of going and I check the doors at night, which is just something I don't usually do. I grew up out there in those boonies, and I feel pretty secure out there, sometimes too secure. Or I would have checked the door the other night before I went to, but let me just tell people ahead of time, ain't nothing in my house worth stealing, so. The most expensive thing in there is the couch in the living room, and sometimes I wish somebody would steal it, but it's about 15 years old, so you really don't want it. I've lost the Bible. These things are so handy, but sometimes they're so aggravating. Here we're going to talk about the parable of the shepherd. It's found in John 10, 1 through 6. If anybody don't have a book and they're following along on their Bible, all of these I think are in the book. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter opened, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep will follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable spake Jesus unto them, but they understood not what things that they were which he spake unto them. The Pharisees here, Jesus immediately introduced the main characters in the conversation or in the parable that he's telling: the thief, the gatekeeper, the shepherd, and the sheep. In some biblical or Bible translations and in ancient manuscripts, it appears that Jesus used the parable on this occasion that might have been a direct response to a question that they had asked back in chapter 9, and we don't have time to go back in there. But in this case, Jesus was quite clearly stating that the Pharisees were not true shepherds. He's calling them out for what they are. They are false shepherds, false religious leaders. They were not the true shepherds of Israel, but rather were thieves who have sneaked in, and they were about, he was telling people and trying to expose, or he was exposing, their ulterior motives and the fact that they were being deceitful and dishonest. His claims were not without merit, since they had just cast out of the synagogue an innocent man that had been healed of blindness. That was back in verse 34. The Pharisees' spiritual blindness is further on display where we just read. The Pharisees understand not what things they were which Jesus spake unto them. The shepherd, being recognized by the gatekeeper, entered into the courtyard without any trouble. The sheep knew his voice and listened to his voice, and they willingly followed him. The gatekeeper, the person who was at the gate to keep the sheep in at night, as each shepherd came, they recognized the voice of their owner. They recognized the voice of their own shepherd, and they would not follow a shepherd that they don't recognize. Now, I get off on this sometimes because I get up in the mornings on Sunday morning, and I have coffee, usually with Perry Stone. He and I have coffee together in the mornings. After he goes off, I continue my coffee with Dr. David Jeremiah. And by the time Dr. Jeremiah is through, I'm going to have breakfast with John Hagee. And then I have to take a break because I have to have a shower and get ready to go to church. And sometimes I'm sitting around and ready to leave, believe it or not. Nobody thinks I'm ready because I'm never here early, but I don't try to get here early. But at some point in time, you got to get dressed, and you got to stop listening to people because you can't listen to them and get dressed at the same time, and you have to get ready to go because we have to be ready to come to church. We have to be ready to go when the time comes to go. And you can do all kind of parallels with that people need to be saved and need to be ready to go. Now, I don't mean ready to go home. You mean you need to be ready to go home, because I had this little talk with Jesus this morning. I mean, it wasn't no long, drawn-out thing. It was just a little conversation I had with the Lord. And I said to him, which I say quite often, Lord, I believe the rapture is so much closer than people are willing to admit that it is. People who really hardly know what the rapture is will talk to you about the rapture. And you don't have to bring it up. They'll bring it up. Or I talk to a friend of mine, somebody that I know, I talk to them sometimes, and they will say such things as, you know, you just got a feeling that something's going on. You got a feeling that something's going to happen. And I'm, you know, me being me, well, I know something's getting ready to happen. Let me just tell you what it's going to be. And I get off on this stuff. Lord knows sometimes I don't really know enough to carry on a conversation with people, and y'all know I can't quote the Bible. One of my goals for this new year coming up was to do more studying instead of trying so hard to read. For the fact that I try to read the Bible through every year, I need to study it more as I go. So I have ordered me a book, and hopefully it's going to help get me into the study mode, because I've never known how to study. Sometimes I don't know how I got through school, but anyway. But the shepherd, being recognized by the gatekeeper, would be allowed to enter into the courtyard with the sheep. The gatekeeper wouldn't stop the shepherd because he knew who the shepherd was. And he would go in, and when he called the sheep, his sheep would follow him, and they would go on, but they won't follow a stranger. Today, we need to be careful who we follow. That's where I was coming when I was talking about all these preachers. There are some preachers on TV you really don't need to listen to. I'm sorry, but you don't need to listen to them. There are some people that in pulpits, not that far from here probably. I don't know anything about preachers in this area, so I'm just using that as an illustration. But there are preachers in plenty of pulpits in this country that you don't need to listen to, because what they're preaching and what they're teaching is contrary to the Word of God. You need to be careful. You need to know the shepherd that you're following. Now, the shepherd that we ultimately follow is Jesus Christ. But we follow shepherds every day because that's our pastors or our shepherds that are leading us, and you need to be sure that you're following the right person. Because we talked about last week, you know, I have a lot of fun with GPS because I argue with GPS too. We were looking for a specific church last night, and I thought, Lord, I hadn't been up that road in so many years. I don't know if I can find that church or not. So I had to GPS it, and then I argued with GPS because they wanted to take me this way, and I thought, well, that ain't the way I would go. And Jackie was saying, well, it's over here. And I said, I was looking for Beverly Hills Baptist Church. I said, I used to live in Beverly Hills. I know where it is. But the problem is, you know, all them roads up there have been changed. And I wanted to go this way and go down and turn. And GPS wanted me to go that way and turn, and I thought, I don't want to go that way. But I went the way GPS told me to go, and we eventually found Beverly Hills Baptist Church, and I thought, Lord, I don't know the last time I have even been up those roads out there. It's been a good long time ago, all those years ago. But sheep are known to be among some of the most obedient of animals, yet they respond only to a shepherd whom they already know. In fact, if sheep are brought by a new owner and placed with different sheep in a new courtyard, they will experience trauma for the first few days, and they'll often run away from the voice that they don't know because they're accustomed to the voice of the shepherd. We should be accustomed to the voice of the Lord. We should know when Jesus is talking to us or when somebody else is talking to you, you should recognize the fact that that is not the voice of the shepherd. You know, years ago, they don't do that anymore, I don't think, because cartoons are not funny anymore. If you ever paid any attention to the cartoons that are on TV now, they're not funny. We grew up with funny cartoons. Now, some of them are right violent. But, you know, we used to watch them, and you'd have on the right side, you'd have this little angel, and he'd be whispering in your ear, telling you what to do, and this was the right thing to do, was to follow this angel. You'd have a little devil, and you know, the devil's always dressed in red, and we used to draw pictures of him when we had gleaners way back when I was little, and it's funny that I can remember that. But we used to draw pictures of the devil, and he was always dressed in red, and he always had horns up here, and then would have little pointed ears up there with those horns. He had a long tail, and he had a pitchfork. I don't know where we got that image from, but in the cartoons, he sat on your left shoulder, and he would tell you all these things that you need to go do, and you knew down deep inside that was not the right thing to do, and then this angel's over here telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. A lot of times you just throw that angel, you just kind of thump it off your shoulder, and you follow this little devil over here because you thought this is going to be fun. So much more fun when you go that way. But then you got to pay for all that fun that you thought you were having, and you realize you really wasn't having fun. I don't understand why people think Christians don't have fun. We should be the happiest bunch of people that's walking on the planet. One of my goals, and I keep saying, y'all know I don't make resolutions, but one of my goals is smile more. You know, smile, you got a lot to be happy about. And I look back on last year's goals, and I had that same goal, smile. Because I don't smile that often. It's usually because my brain is over yonder somewhere dealing with something altogether different. And I look like I'm mad, and somebody told me one time, why are you so serious? You're just so serious. And I thought, me? Me? I'm not serious about anything. But I give out that, maybe it's good, I don't know. But while the blind man experienced trauma, just like these sheep did, he had trauma and conflict with the Pharisees. He recognized the voice of the Lord when the Lord came up to him and basically asked him, are you not the person that I healed? Now, I'm paraphrasing a whole lot. Are you not the person that I healed? Because he was going to the synagogue to tell people that he had been healed, and they wouldn't let him. You know, we get excited. We don't have a whole lot of stuff that we did when I was growing up, and I missed some of it. But you know, people would stand up and testify. They would give these testimonies about what the Lord had done. What the Lord had done, and we get excited when people have been healed. We get excited about physical healing. But what should we be more excited about? Salvation. This ain't got nothing to do with the lesson. Salvation is what we should be excited about. And people should be willing to stand up and say, I'm a changed person. The Lord changed me. Let me tell you my experience with the Lord. Let me tell you about this guy that I met. Let me tell you what he did for me. that I heard a song on, and I should have looked up the words because I absolutely love that song. There was a song that I heard, don't even know where, and I got the words to it and all that stuff, and my goal, my desire, whatever, was to have my Uncle Hayden sing that song. I also thought about Robert Rutherford because I thought their voices would blend to that song. But basically, I can't remember the song other than one little part, and it basically said, I'm drinking from my saucer because my cup has overflowed. That's the way we should approach life with Jesus. Our cup should be so overflowing with the goodness and the presence and the excitement that we should feel about what Jesus did for me, what he did for me, because we have been in situations, all of us, if we be honest, we have taken that wrong path and wandered off. You know, you can probably see all these little lines down the road where we went in the wrong direction. And the Lord brought us back in the right direction. But we should always be able to say, I am drinking from the saucer, because the blessings of the Lord continue to overflow. I tell people all the time, I can look out in our church and I can show you physical miracles. Obviously, we're all spiritually miracles. But I can look at people in this church that I know, if it hadn't been for the Lord, would not be here in the physical sense, because something was wrong that not too many, I'm sorry, Darryl, didn't want to call you by name, but I'm going to. It hadn't been that many years ago. What Darryl had done wouldn't have been possible, would not have been possible. I can remember when you had your heart attack, because I had just taken a job assignment, and Mama went to Charleston with me. And I called Uncle Hayden to be sure he had all the right phone numbers and to give him the number. And he started telling me James had this massive heart attack. Got up the next morning when we came back home and went to Moore County because James was sick. And my mother, I don't know that I would have been quite so determined, I have to be honest, but with my mother, there was no discussing. We were going to Moore County. That's a long ride to come from, I think I was on Daniels Island, coming from Daniels Island to get to Moore County, but we got there. Of course, by the time we got there, James was actually better. You had improved before we got here. You didn't really need my mother as much as she thought. Didn't need Mama's presence as much as she thought you did. But we can look around and be very grateful, very thankful to the Lord for all that he has done. Jesus is the door, John 10:7. I'm just going to tell you all ahead of time, we're not going to get anywhere near through today. Jesus is the door. John 10:7 through 10 says, then Jesus said to them again, verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The thief cometh not but to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. Jesus said he was the door. In response to the Pharisees' confusion, he has slightly changed his metaphor that he's doing, and he said he is the shepherd who leads and guides the sheep. But in John 7 here, 10:7, he also made it known that I am the door of the sheep. I am the way. If you read the 10th chapter of John, all these people that are trying to tell you can get to heaven without ever recognizing Jesus Christ as the Son of God, you will find out they are wrong. They are wrong. They are wrong. Jesus tells you he's the way, he's the truth, he's the life, he's the shepherd, he's the door. You can't get in without going through the door. Now in this building, there's not even any windows. So if you wanted to come in this building, you can't sneak in through the window because we don't have a window. If there's a window in this building, I don't know where it is. Do we have a window that I don't know about? There are no windows in this building. Those doors have alarms on them, I think. I don't want to be wrong. I'm not saying that, but I think they do. I know they have. Yeah, because if it opens up, if the alarm back yonder will go off. So basically, if you're going to come in this building, you best come in that door right yonder. The front door. But Jesus is telling people he's the way, he's the door. You cannot get in unless you come in through Jesus. He's the I am. The statements here characterized in John's gospel are unveiled, or they unveil new facets of Jesus Christ's identity. But how could Jesus be a door or a gate for sheep? In the ancient world, shepherds would often keep sheep in the natural sheep pens and lay themselves in front of the opening. It's called a choke point, in case y'all want to know that if y'all are interested. Thus serving as a door, it allows the shepherd to protect his sheep from those who would seek to harm them, including thieves and robbers. They could not come in and steal your sheep if you're laying right there at the only place you can get in. We have to have our shepherd. We have to have our leaders. We have to have our pastors, because when you have a problem, that's where you go. Sometimes you have a problem, and no matter how much you pray about it, you cannot seem to find a solution. And you need somebody who knows a little bit more than you do. Now, I don't have to go very far to find somebody who knows more than I do. I don't have to look too hard, but other people might have to look a little bit harder than I do to find people who know more than they do. When anyone who did not have the best interest of the sheep in mind tried to get into the pen or access the pen, the shepherd, who was the door, who was lying at the door, would wake up and defend the sheep. If you were in your house and somebody tries to break in your house, you are not going to sit calmly by and see how long it takes them to break in the door. You know, everybody's going to do something different. And I'm not going to ask you what you do, because I don't want to know. But if somebody tries to break in your house, I don't think there's anybody in here that would just go open the door and say, well, come on in, and whatever you see, you can have. Not at my house. You might want my dog. But all of us have some kind of means at our house. Again, I'm not asking. But everybody sitting in here has some kind of something at your house that you think will protect you if anybody comes in. Now, I tell people right fast, I got a baseball bat beside of my bed. Well, I got him too, but I also got a baseball bat beside of my bed. If I got that baseball bat, I can probably make it to the closet. And then that's it. I'm not going to just let somebody walk in my house and threaten me. I just cannot do it. I'm not that. Lord, please forgive me and help me to be a better person, but I'm not that humble. I'm just not that humble. But Jesus would stand between us and danger. The shepherd stood between the sheep and whatever would harm the sheep. If you wanted to steal the sheep, you got to get through the shepherd. And today, when the devil is trying to steal your joy and steal your salvation and steal you away from the paths that you're walking on, he's got to go through Jesus to get to you. Because Jesus is there. He protects us. It says Jesus was the door that protected the sheep from the thieves and robbers, those self-serving teachers of Israel who cared nothing for the sheep. Jesus is still the one through whom the sheep, God's people, enter to find salvation and abundant life. You cannot be saved without Jesus. You're not going to go to heaven without a relationship with Jesus. You have to go through the door to get, or through the gate to get to heaven. It says that in verse 10 here, what is shocking about this is that Jesus' declaration that he alone offers safe pasture and abundant life, only through Jesus. Only through Jesus. And there again, when people are up preaching and teaching and telling you that you don't need Jesus, that you can do it this way or you can do it that way, it does not work. It's kind of like if you decide, I don't need self-rising flour to make biscuits. And you get that plain flour out. You got to have 2 ingredients. I think it's 2. I don't bake biscuits without self-rising flour, so I might get this wrong. But if you look at recipes, if you got self-rising flour, you got to put some baking soda or something in there and a little bit of salt. Is it salt and baking soda? That's it, isn't it? You cook. Nobody in here cooks biscuits without self-rising flour. But it's kind of like that. Somebody can tell you, oh, you can use plain flour, just plain old flour, where you're going to have a flat biscuit. You're going to have a flat biscuit. If you don't stay in touch with Jesus Christ, you're going to have a flat life. I didn't say a flat line, I said a flat life. You're going to have a flat life. You're not going to have the kind of joy and the experience that you have with Jesus Christ. He's the best friend you're ever going to have. You can tell him all your secrets. He already knows them. But you can tell him all your secrets, and you know what? He won't tell a soul. He might move on somebody's heart and say, you need to pray for her. He's not going to tell you why. I tell people all the time, I got a little bitty plaque at my house that a friend of mine gave me years ago. She's gone on now. She gave me a plaque years ago, and that plaque says, you'll always be my best friend. You know too much. Jesus knows all your secrets. and he loves you anyway. He is the way, the truth, the life, and there is no way to make it to heaven without that right relationship with Jesus Christ. And I don't know any better time for people that are not saved to get saved than the first Sunday of the new year. This is the first Sunday, isn't it? My brain is not, I've been confused the past 2 weeks. Having food pantry on Tuesday just don't work for me, Brother Cruz. I haven't known what day of the week it was all week. I got up Friday, I thought it was Saturday, and then yesterday I think I thought it was Monday, and then I thought, well, we didn't go to church, it can't be Monday. I've had a terrible time. I have to have my routine. I got to get back on my routine. But today, the way the world suggests we can discover the ultimate reality through any religion or any experience is just not true. Alternately, the culture suggests that there are many ways to heaven. Again, there's one way. Only one. This parable here that we've been reading boldly declares the opposite. Salvation is made possible only through the door, and that door is Jesus. Any path that does not cross through Jesus will only rob your soul, leading to death and destruction. If we are to experience the abundant life that is promised, we must hear his voice and follow him only. There are stuff in this Bible, not this phone, but in this Bible that's downloaded to this phone, there's words in there that are Jesus words. There's a song, what is the name of it? The Red Dirt Road. I know Brooks and Dunn sing it. But there's a line in there that says, and I'm getting more and more from those words. I'm finding more truth in those words written in red. Those words written in red, if you've got a red letter edition of the Bible, those red letters, those words written in red are Jesus Christ. That's their way of doing quotation marks around what Jesus said. That sets apart, and we need to know and follow the things that Jesus Christ taught. Whew, I'm out of breath. 11 through 13 said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep, but he that is a hireling, and not the shepherd whose own the sheep are not, may seeth the wolf coming, and he leaveth the sheep and fleeth, and the wolf catcheth them and scattereth the sheep. The hireling flees because he is an hireling and he careth not for the sheep. Basically, the hireling was somebody you hired to take care of the sheep. It's like paying somebody to keep your kids. If you're going to pay a babysitter, you need to know that that babysitter is going to take care of your kids. You need to know that that babysitter is going to act in your stead and make the best possible decisions for your children. They're not going to let them have all the chocolate they want. Grandmas do that. That's grandma's job, to give your kids chocolate and sugar just before they send your kids home. That's grandma's job. But if you're going to hire somebody to take care of your kids, you need to know it's somebody you can depend on. If you're going to hire somebody, if a shepherd's going to hire somebody to take care of the sheep, that hireling is not going to care for those sheep like the shepherd does. Why? He doesn't have anything invested in them. You let somebody borrow your car, they're not going to treat your car like you treat it because they don't have any investment in it. We rented a house out one time, and I found out your good friends don't take care of your house. They don't have anything invested in it. It's not theirs. We belong to Jesus Christ. He has an investment in us. What did he invest in us? Y'all awake this morning? His blood. He made a major investment in us. And the devil doesn't care because he doesn't have any investment in us. He would just assume we'd be lost just as lost as he is. The Lord's trying to get us to heaven. But in John 10 and 11, John offered another I am statement that is clarifying that Jesus is, in fact, the good shepherd. If Jesus is a good shepherd, then he experiences the characteristics of goodness, love, compassion, kindness, mercy towards his sheep. As Christian people, when we're dealing with other people, we should display. I lost a word. That's not good, is it? I lost a word. We need to display the characteristics of Jesus: goodness, love. Some people are not so easy to love, but we love them anyway. Compassion. That's one of the most important things you can have, is compassion for another person. When I used to teach CNAs, that was one word I would always come up with. You have to have compassion. Compassion. You can fake a lot of stuff. You can't fake compassion. You don't have to be the smartest cookie out there. But you need compassion. You need to love, to feel, and understand what other people go through. You need that compassion. You need to be kind. And you need to show mercy towards other people because the Lord showed mercy to us. This is meant in contrast to the character that are found in the hired hand, who just was a coward, and he would run away because he was only interested in taking care of himself. While a hired hand might cut and run at the sight of a predator, caring more for his own life and his own pocketbook than the lives of the sheep, the good shepherd puts everything on the line in order to protect the sheep and preserve the flock as if they were his own livestock, because they are. If you're going to be a good shepherd, you're going to take care of those sheep. If you look at people nowadays, you got preachers out there that are preaching and telling you, oh, if you'll send me $1,000, what I can do with $1,000. Well, you can do a lot less now than you could about 20 years ago. Send me $1,000 and I guarantee you'll do this, 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 and this. The only thing you need to do is make your way to an altar, give your heart and soul to the Lord, and he will provide. You may not have everything you want, but I guarantee you have everything you need. We want a lot of stuff we don't need. A lot of stuff we want, it's not good for us. I want to be able to sit down and eat all the chocolate I can handle. And I have been cheating on my diet. And Lord have mercy, have I got to get serious now before I go have any lab work done. Because I have eaten some chocolate. There are some days I could just about kill for a chocolate Snickers. I don't know why. When I could eat all that stuff, I didn't want it all that much. But the good shepherd would lay his life down for the sheep. Not only was Jesus willing to lay down his life for the sheep, in the off chance of that opportunity, that the opportunity arose for him to say that he was already preparing himself to do that in the light of the existing tension against these Pharisees. Jesus knew from day one that he would die on the cross, but he willingly died so that we could be saved. He extended the imagery that he's trying to show here beyond its normal limits, predicting a moment in the not too distant future when he would follow through by going to the cross for the people. He died willingly. In my mind, I am, as Uncle Archie would say, I am persuaded to believe, children. In my mind, I am persuaded to believe Jesus could have stopped that. He could have called on the Father and said, I changed my mind. They're just not worth what I'm going through. The suffering that I'm going through, they're just not worth it. But somewhere, somehow, he could look down through eternity and see us. And I look in the mirror all the time and I say, Lord, I just don't see it. I just don't know what you saw. But I am so eternally grateful that he saw something that was worth him dying, that I could be saved. James Rutherford used to sing the song, and I'll get it all wrong, but it boiled down to if he believed in his soul. Did you write that song where it says basically that he would die if you were the only person that got saved, that he would die? That Jesus would die. If only one person was going to get saved, he would have still died. We're about halfway through the lesson, but we are completely out of time. So I just need to quit. But y'all need to finish reading go back and read the 9th chapter. Will help you out if you didn't read it last week. But read the 10th chapter of John and read about the Good Shepherd and understand what it means to be a sheep being led by the true shepherd. Next week, we're going to be talking about Jesus, who is our example of servanthood. Whew. Has anybody got any comments? Anything you want to say? If not, there's my notes. We didn't get time to read them. If anybody wants to see my notes, I'll let you have them. Thank you for your attendance, and thank you for your attention. Oh, I'm in the red zone. I'll read my battery. We'll stay away.